A few Bears changed their numbers, one being Jaylon Johnson and one moving off number 13, which we're going to talk about today. Montez Sweat also says that Gervon Dexter is probably ready for a breakout season, and we're going to look at some of the best tackles not named Joe Alt that the Chicago Bears can get in this draft. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, just a quick couple of updates on numbers. So Jaylon Johnson will be switching back to his college number. That's number one. That's the number that was left vacant after the Justin Fields trade. So we now know who will be having Justin Fields' old number. I've seen quite a bit of reactions to this on social media. Some Bears fans not really taking it like overly seriously. Some people, take it more seriously than not. It's a number. And while Justin Fields, I was a Justin Fields guy, right? Is that let's not act like he had a legendary career here in Chicago. So I don't really think of it one way or another when it comes down to it. He's going back to his college number. And my thing is as long as his performance stays where it was last season, that's what I want to see, or it increases at the very minimum. So, no big deal there. Now, Tyler Scott also is changing from number 13 to number 10, which is leaving that now number vacant for either, is it Caleb Williams? Is it going to be Keenan Allen? Who's going to get that number? I think all signs are kind of pointing to Keenan Allen probably getting that number. And there's also a new quarterback coming in who could possibly want that number, but I think more than likely probably Keenan Allen's going to get it. There was some speculation yesterday on social media that maybe Caleb Williams' number was going to be number 18 due to some glitch in when you try to go and customize jerseys on NFL.com. I don't think any of that. I don't think any of that really matters when it comes down to it. It's going to be what it's going to be, and that's what it comes down to. But for what it's worth, the number changing. So Tyler Scott is going from number 13 to number 10. And at the end of the day, hey, it is what it is when it comes down to it, man. I don't really care about number switches too much. Just perform, right? That's what the biggest thing is, just perform and get it done. And so, as we get closer and closer to the draft now, 14 days, exactly 2 weeks away from the NFL draft, I can't wait till it goes down. I just can't wait to kind of get the speculation over, especially with the number 1, number 9 overall picks, to just get that done, know who we're going to have in our building. Of course, we got, day 2 of the draft and things like that. So, but it's going to be exciting to see the Bears get it done. And thank God that the Bears, luckily, are, in the top 2 of their first-round picks are in the top 10. They have no second-round picks as of right now. So we're not going to have to wait too far into the draft to know exactly what the Chicago Bears are going to be doing at that draft selection spot. And we'll continue to see and monitor it and what it's going to be for that Chicago Bears team. But all right, with that said, let's go ahead and move into it. So Montez Sweat, in the same interview, he talked about Caleb Williams and things like that. Mentioned Javon Dexter. And Javon Dexter is in a unique spot, right? Because most people understood that the Bears need a 3 tech. And, while edge is also something that a lot of Bears fans want to see addressed, with the departure of Justin Jones, who played much better after Montez Sweat came to the team, people are now looking and saying, has Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, are they really that confident on what Javon Dexter is going to bring to this team to where they haven't addressed the 3 tech? They didn't really go after any defensive tackles, starting level defensive tackles in free agency. And Montez Sweat saying this, you're going to see, man, I feel like he's still just kind of unlocking himself and being himself. I think that's going to really flourish this year, but he's really talented kid. He's one of the most quick defensive tackles and was strong as hell. It's really a sight to see. But yeah, he's going to jump out on the scene for sure. And that confidence may be as well how Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles feels about Javon Dexter. Now, I've seen some of you guys' comments. Some of the Bears fans right now aren't sold on Javon Dexter. And I can understand that. While only 22 years old, he played all 17 games last season. It's not like he did too much to really kind of shock and awe. He had growing pains over the season like a lot of rookies do. 20 total tackles, 13 of those being solo, 2.5 sacks for Javon Dexter last year as well. So, he those are okay numbers. Right now, he didn't start most of the season for the Chicago Bears. He was coming off the bench. He came along as time went on, and he's going to get his opportunity leading in this season. And I'll go so far as to say this. As much as we've talked about whatever edge is going to be on the opposite side of Montez Sweat, let's keep in mind, Matt Eberflus has said literally since he took the job here how important the 3 tech was to his defensive system. So there are going to be a lot of eyes on Javon Dexter and how he develops in his second year in the NFL. And yeah, you're starting off now with with Montez Sweat being on that defensive line, which helps a whole hell of a lot. If the Bears do get another edge at number 9 or early in this draft, that's going to help as well. And then you have Andrew Billings, the veteran. You have DeMarcus Walker, who right now is slated as probably being the other starting in, but that may change. DeMarcus Walker, a player who can go from the inside and out. So, it's if they truly are, and it ends up shaking out this way to where Javon Dexter is going to be the starting defensive tackle a starting defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears next year, it's going to be a important season for him to kind of show what did he learn from year 1 to year 2. And he could become a very important part of that defensive line as well, because we've seen what Javon Dexter has done in college and things like that. And, his numbers were nice. They weren't, eye-popping or earth-shattering or anything like that. But Javon Dexter is a player who came into Chicago with tons and tons and tons of potential. But like I like to say about every young player in every sport, that I do it on Chicago Bulls Central as well, when it comes down to it, not all potential is realized. So just because you have the potential doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit on that potential. But when you look at Javon Dexter in college, 3 years played, 50 solo tackles in that time, 131 total tackles, 18 tackles for a loss, 5 total sacks in those 3 years as well, and 1 interception as well, which is crazy. That came his freshman year. So Javon Dexter, like I said, not necessarily the most earth-shattering collegiate stats by any stretch of the imagination, not necessarily somebody you look at for sure just based off their stats, but you got to look at the physical. You got to look at that type of thing. Javon Dexter has all the physical tools. And we know that he was working on his get-off last year. He needs to work on some of the technique things. But if that comes along for him in the second year, and he's going to have a defensive line coach, well, now a defensive coordinator, in Eric Washington, who knows how to develop people. And he's going to get more than enough opportunity. With the way Eric Washington likes to rotate in and out the defensive line to keep it fresh, it's going to be one of those unique things that I think we're going to hear a lot of players' names called next year. We're going to be able to keep our defensive line hopefully fresh as well on top of that. So it's going to be important to see how the Chicago Bears develop him and how he comes in and performs for the Bears. Because listen, Javon Dexter's young, and if we do get another rookie edge to add to that as well, that's a young defensive line outside of Billings and Sweat, but he has veterans around him. He has a defensive line coach that is going to try to get the most out of him. He has a coach that is seemingly invested in him. The fact that they didn't really spend any money on defensive tackle. So him and Zach Pickens to a lesser degree as well. This is going to be an important year to really see what and how they develop and how do they look. Do they look at players? Does Javon Dexter go from a player that looks like he has some promise to a player that you look at him as a starter, but still developing on those things as well? And I have faith in Javon Dexter, but you guys know I tend to err on the side of optimism with everything, at least initially first. And then, as signs start to show, that's where I start going a little bit left at. So, Javon Dexter has, like I said, all the physical tools in the world. And I think he's going to be a hugely important piece. If they truly operate him and run him as a 3-tech, it's going to be important because that 3-tech is important for Matt Eberflus's system. And he's been running it without a 3-tech for a while. And there's some people who question how much of a 3-tech is Javon Dexter really going to be when it's all said and done. But this is going to be the season. This is a season for him to come in, try to earn a starting position. Because right now, yeah, he's penciled in as a starter, but we know competition. And Matt Eberflus is not afraid to let everybody compete for open roles. So, if he comes out of training camp with it and he performs in training camp, he performs in preseason, and he comes into the season rocking and rolling, building off what he showed last season, hey, this could be a really important season for Javon Dexter. And I'd actually say he's one of the most important second-year players coming into that. And we have a lot of them, really, when you look at it. Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Lewis, Javon Dexter, Zach Pickens to a lesser degree as well, right? Third-year players like a Jack Sanborn coming in here. So, Noah Sewell as well as a player that I hope to see a lot too. So, we got some players that are still developing. And while some Bears fans aren't necessarily as high on what Ryan Poles has done in the draft and kind of concerned about the 4 draft picks that we're going into this draft with, we still got some pretty promising young players. They got to show a lot of development, and hopefully they do that because, again, Ryan Poles, they've really created the perfect environment for that. And I really do trust Eric Washington to develop those guys. But one of the positions on the opposite side of the football, on the offensive side, we know that we need some help in the trenches. A lot of fans are hoping that the Bears really draft tackle, and there's some really good ones. We know Joe Alt, who is a generational type player at his position in there. That's clear cut. I don't think there's any really other questions about that. But what are some of the other tackles that the Bears could really look at in this draft. And, they brought in J.C. Latham, who we've talked about before, another young, promising player. Some people have him ranked as like the 4th or 5th best tackle in this draft. Olu Fashanu as well from Penn State is another one, 6'6", 312 pounds, another tackle that projects to be a starting level tackle in this NFL. And then, Troy Fatanu, who I don't think, unless the Bears are going to, trade down or something like that, I don't necessarily know, but the Bears can really get some quality tackles in this one. But I want to go kind of further down the list. Those are tackles we've all talked about so far. Who are some of the other tackles that could stand out that the Bears could look to get in this? And one I want to talk about is Kieran, I'm going to murder his last name, out of Yale, a tackle out of Yale, 6'5", 323 pounds. This guy, listen, he has the physicality in it, and he has great arm length. He's strong. It can project to be a starting level, not necessarily coming right in and do that. He has the footwork. He knows how to use his upper body. I really like this guy as somebody that the Bears could look at, especially if they do trade down, get some extra picks. He's somebody that could go off the board for the Chicago Bears. Absolutely. Jordan Morgan out of Arizona is another one. This guy's 6'5", 311 pounds. PFF ranks him as the 8th best tackle in this draft. He was a 3-year starter at Arizona, so somebody who really can. He suffered an ACL injury in late 2022, but he really kind of showed a lot last year as well. And he can operate in both the run-pass blocking and run blocking as well. I think he's another tackle you can bring in, kind of push Braxton Jones, add some depth to that team as well. And then Tyler Gutton out of Oklahoma is another one as well. 3'8", 3'8". No, what am I talking about? Jesus Christ, I'm losing my mind. 6'8", 322 pounds. He's a really good guy. He's a tackle that don't be surprised if he goes kind of earlier than what some of the mocks are expecting. I think that he's a guy who's battled some injuries, so there's definitely some injury concerns there, but he's another tackle that I think the Bears could absolutely pick up. And then Amarius Mims out of Georgia, 6'8", 340 pounds. This is another really big body, talented there. You can really get him kind of later in that draft as well. He's a damn good player, and I think he's somebody who absolutely could bowl well for the Chicago Bears if they decide to go that way as well. I do think they're going to be looking for some quality. Even if they don't go tackle in the first round, they're going to be looking for some quality tackles. Now, he'll go probably later in the first round, so you got to look at that. But then, outside of those picks, right, you got Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, 6'5", 385 pounds. This guy's slated to go much later in the draft. But he's a prospect piece that the Bears could absolutely look to pick up as well. 21 years old. He'll be 22 for the majority of his rookie season. Basically, he's another guy that I think you can really get that can up that tackle position for you as well. So those are some other names that the Bears could look at. I know we've kind of locked into certain names, at least I have while doing this show, and it's really a lot of other names that if the Bears just need some tackle depth, which they may look to go edge, they may look a wide receiver, they may look at some other positions first, but that shoring up that offensive line is a big thing. And I think the Bears, I still think they're going to try to get in that second round where they're using some of their own picks, because I think there's a lot of centers in this year's draft that are starting level centers that are going to go in round 2. The Bears just don't have a pick in round 2. So that's something to also look out for to see if the Bears truly do trade into the second round to get some of those starting caliber centers in that second round. But overall, like I said, we're about exactly 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. It's going to be fun times here at Chicago Bears Central. You guys still make sure you guys stay tuned in with us. And we'll develop, and you guys can cry about Caleb Williams and whatever else it is. And hopefully it just leads to the Bears winning football games. I think that's the most important thing here, right? Like, it's been calming down a little bit. I will say this. The vocal community about Caleb Williams and the fingernail pain and all that type of stuff is like, it's starting to calm down a little bit. But I'm sure he's going to pick right the fuck back up once he is officially drafted, which it really does seem like that. And also, more and more rumblings that Ryan Poles could actually be looking to trade the number 9 overall pick, which it goes back and forth. We'll have a week of outlets saying, hey, Ryan Poles seems very contented keeping the number 9 pick. Then we'll hear some things that no, Ryan Poles is a little bit antsy about it, which I think is the most recent thing that came out of Bears Digest, is that ESPN's Jordan Reed, that Ryan Poles is antsy. He'll get antsy on draft day and trade out of that number 9 pick to get more picks. So we'll end up seeing, man. But I think, and I know I've said this a lot, but it comes down to just getting the right guys. And hopefully that this is an offseason where Ryan Poles, the Chicago Bears, just get the right guys. And we look back in this draft 1-2 years later and we say we got the right guys. And then we're a team that's actually competing and contending for something. At least that's my hope. You guys can let me know what you think as always down below. Make sure you're following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.